advent of 15, the need to rebuild indexes can be folded back into the reorg. Rebuilding indexes can be a major pain in the butt for a variety of reasons. It takes a long time. We put locks out on the table. If you're rebuilding a clustered index, you've got an exclusive lock on the table for the duration of the rebuild. Many people here can afford to have large tables offline for 2 or 3 days while we're waiting for the clustered index to be rebuilt. Surprise, no hands going up. The reorg, however, if we do a reorg rebuild, we can do a reorg rebuild on a portion of the table for a particular time limit and get these things going. Other problems with things like dropping and recreating indexes, referential integrity constraints, lots and lots of stuff ends up going on. So with the ability to do the reorg rebuild, really good stuff, no longer an excuse not to do the index rebuild. I've personally seen index rebuilds or reorg rebuilds improve performance by 200 to 300%, 2 to 3 times faster in the reorg rebuild. Very cool stuff. DVCC check storage. Way too many shops don't do this at all. What the check storage does, in the olden days, I'll share a story with you. When I was back in 93, I was doing some work on a system that was scoped out for about 65 gigabytes in size. Today we have 5 times that on our laptops. In 93, that was considered to be a very large database. In fact, 20 gig was considered to be, I'm not sure if we can manage 20 gigabytes of data. So I was a little bit of a celebrity at that point. I was speaking at users groups on the large databases, and because I was a celebrity, people were asking my opinions about things I really didn't know enough about to offer an opinion on. So usually I just said I don't know. But I got a very interesting question asked of me by somebody, and they said, they asked was, Jeff, do you think we really need to run DVCCs anymore? Now, at that time, we didn't have the check storage available. We do a DVCC check DB and a DVCC check catalog and a DVCC. You've run through these. You know, there are 3 different DVCCs we ran. And I answer for this one. He said, do you really think we need it? And the fellow laughs into a story, and he says, you know, last week I was talking to Bob Epstein. For those of you who haven't been in the Sybase world forever, he's the guy who originally wrote the ASE code. I was talking to Bob Epstein. He doesn't understand why people run this in a production environment. It's just supposed to be something for engineering in case something went wrong. And we don't get why people are running this in production environments. Well, clearly the guy wasn't a DBA, and clearly Bob Epstein had spent more time dealing with Sybase Engine than running a day-to-day production environment. The reason to run these things in production is if something crops up, a minor inconsistency, page which is not linked properly, if we catch this early, we can fix the problem. If we don't catch this early, the problem tends to snowball, and over the course of time, it gets to the point where your tables and databases become corrupted and unusable. If you've ever experienced this, I've had it happen less than a handful of times in the 20 years I've been doing this. 3 times I've had to deal with it directly, and twice I've handled it indirectly. In all of those occasions, except for one, DVCCs weren't running. And what we came to the conclusion of is if you're running these things, and in each of the cases, these things went to engineering. In each of the cases they looked at it, they did say that the DVCC would have identified it, the DVCC fix would have corrected it. But what ended up happening was these folks had between 1 and 3 days of downtime trying to fix the problem first because they couldn't afford to lose the data, and then decide they're going to bite the bullet and go back to the backup. DVCC check storage does a couple of good things for you. First, it does a scan of the information you get out there, make sure the page chains are good, the system catalogs are good, allocation is good, but it will also update some of the internal system information for you that the optimizer is going to make use of. This is one that's not documented well. So be aware that the check storage does a lot of good things for you. Make sure that you set it up and do run this as part of your preventive maintenance regimen. Has long-term positive performance impact. Then, with the advent of 15, we have these new optimization goals. Has anybody played with these yet? Results?
able to go to a lot of trial and zoom in.
Yeah, a lot of trial and error goes on. Most of the folks that I talk to can't tell the difference in performance between the different optimization goals. Those folks who have taken the time to dig into that, you can find some very specific cases where they make differences. In fact, if you look at the SP configure options, there's one of the new join options which is configurable, and it's an enable option. Now, generally as DBAs, when we do an enable is a 0 or 1, right? 0 says no, 1 says go for it. Now, this particular config option, it's the enable of the JTC, the join transitive closure. It has an enable of 2. And I have to tell you, I had to look that one up because I was learning the difference between a 0 and a 1. The difference is 0 is off, 1 is on, 2 is, it depends on your optimization goal. Now, different optimization goals, versus whether it be OLTP, mix, or DSS, that's going to control the types of joins that you might make in situations that have very complicated queries. So if you have a star or snowflake scheme and you want to be able to run multiple parallel processes off in 12 different directions, then you may want to make sure you've got the DSS goal set on or a mixed goal set on so that you've got that joint transitive closure option and the ability to use those different types of joins. For most folks, most of the time, out of your queries, you're not going to see a difference, but there's going to be these outliers, the exceptions, the dramatic difference as time goes on. That was quick. How did I do on time? I'm almost perfect. Hey. So, summary. Presentation, I think, will be available for download if this interests you at all. Questions for me?
Well, one question I have. On the parallel side, you said that it's better to try with at least a nominal zone of water process. What if, I mean, if you have, let's say, 10 engines running, what kind of value will you start with?
I usually start with about 20 worker processes, irregardless of the number of engines. With 10 engines, what I'll do is I'll start with a degree of parallelism of 4, and then we'll way up from there. And then you have to play with it to see what's all in your environment. And you may find that, nightly bash versus your daily online stuff, you want different configurations there. So you probably want to play with both.
Yeah, I see that it makes the query very slow. I mean, with the parallel. It doesn't run. If the query, without time in real case, if the query takes a second, we can't parallel and it becomes hours.
That's a good thing to set Sybase as a bug. I haven't had that particular problem. Now, 15, I've seen some erratic performance issues that need resolved. A lot of them get resolved with updating statistics more often and with more steps in updating index stats. Some of them are server bugs, needed to be reported. I'm in a shop right now that has an enormous number of index forces, old compatibility modes turned on, because they haven't worked through what was causing the issue. And they didn't have the time to work through them, and as a result, they just said, okay, let's go back with the old version. So the server is very good at what it does. If you find a situation where it's not, you need to make fun of Sybase so they fix it.
And type your questions online as well. We'll be able to feed them in here and get them answered, and we'll try to repeat the questions that people have in the room so you can hear online. Question coming from online. So I'd like to know which Linux variant is proved to run on Power Series. I think it's not. It's a question for Jeff. More. Which Linux variant is proved to run on the Power Series?
Good, interesting question.
I run both.
Yeah, I might have to.
A good question. I'm not sure what approved means, but Power supports, or the other way around, Red Hat supports Power, and SUSE supports Power. The Red Hat current version is 5.5, and 6.0 is coming out sometime soon. Will be optimized with Power 7. SLES 11, it supports 10.5. SLES 11 is also out, and it is optimized to run Power 7. So it supports both Red Hat and SUSE.
Yeah.